guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fatherhood Experience, where we help men leave the average dad life behind and become the ultimate role model that their families deserve. We are your hosts, Jason Priest and Zach Smith. We've got an awesome guest for you guys today. Before we dive in, I want to thank every single one of you guys who continues to listen to us every single week and helps spread the message to get our show into the ears of more men who could potentially change their lives by tuning in each week. We're here to provide maximum value for you guys, and we love your suggestions. So drop us a review, give us any content requests that you have, and we will make sure we put that on the show in the future. With us today, I have Mr. Dean Inniss. Dean is the managing partner at Your Best Life Now, an organization helping people to elevate finance, family, fitness, and faith to maximize their best life through coaching, community, coaching, community, and exclusive once-in-a-lifetime experiences. His unique background of business experience, law enforcement, martial arts training, and economic analysis gives him a rare perspective that enables him to successfully guide entrepreneurs, CEOs, and other top executives to new heights. We had a nice conversation with Dean before we dove into the show, and I'll let you guys know, obviously, those of you who have been following us for a while know that our four core pillars in the fatherhood are fitness, family, finance, and freedom. So Dean and our company are very aligned. We're going to have a great conversation today. Dean, thank you so much for joining the show today, man. We're excited to dive in. I guess we'll start off with this, man. Tell us how you got to be with us today, because going off of your background and everything that I listed off, law enforcement, martial arts, economic analysis, man, like you got a lot going on there. So, and a lot of moving parts. So tell us how you got here to be with us today.
Well, first, I'm very blessed to be with you, Jason and Zach, because, what happened really is our company's doing well, and I'm pretty low on the totem pole as far as digital footprints. So my staff said, we're not going to do this anymore. So people need to know a little bit more about you. So why don't you do some podcasts? And so I started doing that. And you know what's really incredible is you never know what's going to happen. I haven't done too many, but I got to tell you, when I saw the fatherhood, it fits right in with what I believe that we should be talking about in our society. So, I had a terrific dad and mom, and they were very young. They had 4 kids, and my dad was in the military. He was from the Bronx, decided to see the world and joined the military, and ended up in Cheyenne, Wyoming. So how does that work for you? So he met my mom, and at a very young age, they started a family, struggling and doing all the things that families do, and I tell people all the time, I didn't have a really rich family, but I had a really rich family because my mom and dad loved us. And I think if your parents show you love, that's 80% of the battle. And sometimes that love requires some discipline and a square kick in the you know what. And I tell you what, I made enough mistakes, and I got a few of those, and I learned from it. But I was just very lucky to have the parents I had. I had to earn my way and earn my keep. And I think that is another lesson that helps us in fatherhood, as an example. So I put myself through college, graduated at age 21 with a degree in economics, wanted to go into the FBI. In 85, we had a ton of bad things in the US economy. I know that Obama called 2008 the Great Recession, but he was so far off base, you can't even believe. We had unemployment of 11%, inflation of 13%, mortgages were running at 17%, and the government had a hiring freeze. So that tells you a little something about the economy that I came out of. So I couldn't go into the FBI. They said, go into local law enforcement for a couple of years. We'll be able to hire you. I did that. I went to the police academy, had a really good experience, came out, got shot at it a couple of times, and had some real fun experiences working graveyard in Wyoming at 30 below. And I thought, 15 grand a year, maybe I should go into banking. So I did that. But it was my hometown. I really enjoyed some of the components of law enforcement. So I went ahead and did it for 5 years for free as a volunteer. And that leads me to another pillar, community service, and taking care of not only your family, but the people around you, because someday you're going to need them. And if you always take care of each other, we'll be fine. One of the things that crosses my plate often, because I'm an economist. I'm pretty conservative. I have some pretty core values, as you guys already established. But the one thing that I believe in that is missing from today and missing from some families is respect.
Mhm.
I think that, I have friends that are way on the other side of the aisle as far as their belief system and what they think the country should be. But I learned a long time ago that if you respect those people and they return that respect, that you can come up with something that works for everybody. And
I agree
and
with you 100%.
you guys are seeing it right now. We can't
Mhm.
get to that point because we have people pulling triggers and leading extreme situations, and we
Mhm.
forget that most of us are right here.
Mhm.
And so, we're right in the middle somewhere. And if we listen and we say, I can live with that and you can live with that, we can make progress.
100%. 100%.
And you
Before we
know,
get any further, I want to touch on a couple of things, man, because I don't want to lose this nugget. So number one is you mentioned just a couple of minutes ago how your family, your parents were rich, that they weren't rich, right? And I want to touch on that because I think it's very important for our listeners to know this is like there are a lot of men or fathers out there that are chasing the dream, right? They're chasing the financial rewards and they lose sight of the family. And I know that's a big thing that you touch on. But when you talk about being rich, I think we lose because here's the thing: is like when you're gone, there's nothing. There's no money doesn't matter anymore, right? And so if you spend your life grinding your life away trying to provide, but there's no relationship, there's no health value. You're not leading by example. Your kids always do what you see or do what they see. They're never going to do what you say to do, right? They do what they see. And if you're leading by example and you're showing them the love and the compassion that they deserve as your children, and you're showing them what it's like to be fit and healthy and be active and do the things you know you need to do to take care of yourself, you're doing the things that you know you need to be doing by cultivating better relationships with your wife, showing your wife love, respecting women in front of your children so that they can see what it's really like. They don't want to hear you yelling at wifey. They want to see you holding the door for her, giving her a hug, giving her a kiss, showing her the love that she deserves, right? The financial piece is there if you're chasing your dream and you're showing them that you're a hard worker, but all these things have to align. And so when you say they weren't rich, but they were rich, I think that's something that we can't lose sight of, man. Like that's massive because so many people get caught up in the financial piece and they lose sight of what's truly valuable. And then their kids go off to college or they go off to do their own thing. And all of a sudden they live with regret. I've been chasing the dream. I've been chasing this so long. And now I've lost all this valuable time with my kids. And now I get to see them, a few times a year, if you're lucky. Right. And so let's touch on that, man, because I think it's so important
well,
for our audiences.
I think you're so right. I've had my share of success and I've been very blessed that way. But I've done some speaking engagements and one of them, people assume things about your background when you dress well and you carry yourself well. And I tell people all the time, my mom had an 8th grade education. She was a waitress. My dad was an enlisted guy in the Air Force. And, they had 4 kids by the time they were 22. And so, they took care of that.
Mhm.
Right. But we took care of it. We went out to eat maybe once every 4 months or something like that. And that wasn't a big deal. You know why? Because every night when we came home, we had dinner together, and my mom did the best she could about making sure that we had the 4 food groups back then and all of that stuff. And we'd have engaging conversations and my dad would play us off against each other and stuff like that just to, see what we learned in school. And he didn't just say, how are things at school? Never said that. He said, what did you learn?
Yep.
What can you teach me?
Yep.
And so
Love that.
he extracted stuff from us.
How was
And
your day at school is a dead end question. And kids
right.
don't know
Yes
how
or
to
no.
answer that.
They don't want to talk about
Single
it.
answer. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And
Single
so,
word answer.
just
I learned that my son, my oldest is in 2nd grade now. And I learned a valuable lesson on that about a year and a half ago. He was still young enough for me to still really change my tone on this. Right. And when I started asking him specific questions, it actually challenges his thoughts a little bit, right? It's like, well, shit, what did I learn today? What can I tell dad? Right? Versus, it was a good day. How many parents out there don't know that this is like a golden nugget? Because when you start to dig a little bit deeper, and it's even more important now because you're conservative, you know that the public education system is not meant for people to succeed. It's meant for people to become a victim of society, pay off debt the entire time, and continue to line the government's pockets, right? And when you know this, it's very important for fathers to become more involved in their children's education. And when you start to ask them questions about what you learned today, what did you experience today? What was one good thing that happened to you today? Or what was one bad thing happened? What was one thing that you would have changed about your day if you could have? Did you do anything nice for somebody today? Or did somebody do anything nice for you, right? Whole different perspective than how was your day, right? That's such a flat question, right?
Well, and the level of engagement is not just for you, but think about what your son does after he says, you know, my dad asked me this question. He might pay a little bit more attention tomorrow in school. He might try and extract something from that education system that maybe they weren't really trying to give, but it's there.
Right.
You know, I didn't want my son to go to private school because I wanted him to understand things. I wanted him to see diversity. And you know, when I say diversity, I'm so sick of, I live in El Paso, Texas. Okay. And you guys are worried about,
I'm in Texas too, but dude, you're a far cry from me.
You guys
like
are worried
12
about
hours,
me,
dude.
worried
Holy
about
crap.
what I might say. Well, here, I'm going to drop a bomb on you. Okay.
You're
I live
ready.
in a city that's 82% one thing. It is the antithesis of diversity. I lived in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and there was so much more diversity in Cheyenne. I can't tell you because the railroad went through there in the 1800s. The military's been there since the 1800s. We have a mix of Asians, Black. We got everything there. I come here and I got Veronica Escobar saying, oh, we have such a diverse community. I'm like, you're full of crap. But I will tell you that diversity is inside, because I think we got
100%.
one race. If you can share blood, that means you're the same. So get past the rest of it, because it don't matter. When the shit hits the fan, you get shot, somebody's going through a door with you.
Doesn't matter what
you
color
don't
you
care
are.
what color they are.
Nope.
You know they're your brother. They're your sister. I don't care. And so diversity to me is how people react, how people are raised, what their economic situation is, what you can learn from that. Because I remember being poor. And I learned a lot from being poor. And you know, I can share this with you. We live in the same house we built in 1996. It's 2,000 square feet. I could live in this huge thing, but that was never my gig. My gig was
I love it.
Make sure that my family was secure. So my son didn't know how well I did, and I didn't want him to know. I wanted him to learn how people are and what their challenges are, so he could learn from that. And I think that we gave him that gift, and his mother is an amazing woman. She invested everything in him. And, you know, he just graduated last year. He's got a full ride scholarship in honors engineering at the University of Arizona. And I'll tell you something that his dad told him. I said, look, you turned 18. My involuntary support of you is over. It is now voluntary. Everything that we come up with and communicate with now is my decision based on your merit. If you don't deserve it, I paid for my own school. Didn't hurt me at all. I got no problems turning you loose on your own. I said, you worked your ass off to get this scholarship. Don't blow it now. And you know, I think expectations lead back to that question that we ask our son or daughter without saying the word expectation. We're teaching them, hey, what happened? How did you help somebody? What can you do in the community? What can you do at church? How can you be better? And so when you ask those questions, what are you doing? You're setting those expectations.
Well, but here's the thing, Ding, I want to add this, because when you are engaging with your son or daughter at a young age, like you did, and you're well informed about their life, they're well informed about your life, and you are truly leading by example in every facet, right? You're not telling them to go out and play soccer and kick the soccer ball around while you're sitting on your ass, watching Netflix and eating chips, right? That is the opposite of leading by example. But when you've led by example and you've had a highly engaged relationship from a young age, when they do turn 18, you are confident beyond all confidence that they're okay to go out on their own because you've done your job as a father, right? That's the piece that's lacking. Because if you're not involved,
the tools.
Yeah, imagine the reverse being true. Imagine you are a disengaged father. You are telling them that, that you don't ask the question. You're like, how was your day? And you're chasing the dream, or you're being the provider while not making yourself a priority so that you can be around long-term for your family, right? So that you can actually provide and protect, right? We might be headed to we're headed to some darker times than we've ever seen in our entire life. If you're a provider, you better be able to protect too, because when shit hits the fan, if you're 80 pounds overweight and you can't even run 100 yards down the street without keeling over, dying of a heart attack, you're not a provider anymore. You cannot protect your family. Men are meant to be able to, the fathers are be able to protect their family, right? And like, God forbid something happens, but something's happening, right? We got some fishy stuff going on. And so I can't agree with you more, man. When you have the confidence to send them off like that, that's where the magic happens. Now, I want to touch on another point so I don't lose it in my train of thought here, but you touched on something right at the end when I interrupted you last time. I apologize for that. By the way, I got to cut you off so I can extract the nuggets, right? But you mentioned that, you started to lead up to, the craziness that we have going on in the world, right? And you said that, you believe diversity is how you react, right? It's in your mind. You can share blood, all that. I know that none of us three believe that the country is as divided as we're being led to believe it is. Okay. You mentioned that we're not communicating, right? The diversity thing that you mentioned about your community in El Paso. Okay. The bottom line is this: people can't get off the damn phone. And what you're being told 8 hours a day by scrolling your cell phone and all the negative bullshit that you're being fed makes you feel like we're a divided country. When reality is, you go out into the community and you actually have real conversations and real discussions with real people, you're going to quickly realize that like 95% of the people, they're not leaning far left and they're not leaning far right. They're mostly in the middle, and we can mostly get along, and we mostly want the government to stay out of our hair. That's it, right? And that's the piece that is missing right now, is because we've had this massive shift towards the digital age, which technology is great to a certain extent. And Zach and I talk about it all the time, setting your social media up in a way that's going to serve you instead of a way that's going to pull you down, right? That's the missing piece, man. And I believe, and you hit on it already, but the more communication we have as a society, the more we're going to realize, hey, it's us versus them. There's a small little percentage of people that are trying to control our thought processes by the shit they're feeding us through this damn phone. We are not meant to spend 8 hours a day on our phone.
Let me give you some other strength. Okay. My son did not get a cell phone till he was 15.
I didn't get one till I was 18.
I'm having a hard time even
but I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you both, grow a damn spine, because here's the deal. Okay. My son used to come to me all the time. Dad, everybody's got a phone. I said, then you don't need one. I said, you don't need one, because if something goes wrong, they can call for you. And I said,
damn it, that was me.
I said, look, you know what, Chase? If you can't communicate, then you can't communicate. And I'll tell you, I love what my son has accomplished. And I've been that guy that never overpraised. I always said, you know what, you did a great job, but I expected that of you. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And that's what my dad did for me. My dad, all of us were different. And that's why I talk about diversity. In our family, we had diversity. Each one of us were different. If I got a B, I was grounded. My brother bring home a C, they had a freaking party. And when you're growing up, you don't understand that. But as you get older, my dad would explain, he said, we all have different skills. We all have different, we did things, the men in the family did things together, but they fall off because we had different skill sets.
Sure.
I told you guys, I started martial arts when I was 12. I studied 5 different styles. I fought full contact karate, amateur. And I'll tell you that I did not push martial arts on my son. As a matter of fact, he didn't know I was a martial artist till he was 10. And so there was a Bruce Lee movie on, and I said, come here, I want to show you something. And I did some of the kicks from the movie, and my son goes, wow. Well, he said he wanted to try it, but after 6 months, he didn't like martial arts. I said,
Sure.
fine.
Yeah.
But I also ran cross country. I did some other stuff. We played football. We did all those things. And he ended up being the cross country track guy. And that's what he wanted. So,
I think that my son is going down the same path, man.
Yeah,
but
for
opposite.
me, just our responsibility is this, though, right? It's support him, but that doesn't necessarily mean buy him the shoes and all that, because I didn't do that shit, right? What I said was, if you're going to do this, you're going to commit to it, because there's people relying on you to do your very best.
Yep.
So if you engage, you follow it through. Period. I don't care if it's karate. I don't care if it's track. I don't care. He was in band too. It was the same thing. And all of a sudden, he did well in track. He did well in school. He loved the band. Why? You make a commitment. You see a return. You get that team situation. And going back to what we're talking about as far as society, those kids aren't Democrats and Republicans.
No,
they're not gender. They're not worried about what sex they are. You know what the problem is? The problem is they should worry about each other and taking care of each other and being there for each other when things get tough. When things are easy, it's always easy. I talk about being in mortgages and banking, and I've been through 4 debacles, and I can tell you, character doesn't show when everything's going great.
Right.
Character shows when the shit hits the fan.
It's
who
adversity.
can stand up, who can help their brother, who can raise the hand down and lift them up with their arm. And like you said, I'm cruising pretty close to 60. And it's funny, you said the man should be able to defend themselves. You know what? I may not be the martial artist I used to be.
I wouldn't mess with you, dude.
You don't want to rest. You don't want to mess with me. I'll tell you what, people come up to the gym because they have bags and everything, and they're like,
yeah, I ain't messing with you, dude. An ex-cop who wanted to be in the FBI, all this martial arts training. Nope, I'm good.
Yeah, but it's funny. The last 30 years, it was all about banking. And when you're the president of the largest, nobody thinks that you're all those other things.
Yeah.
And I liked it that way.
I bet. No, this is look, I think we've hit on some great points, man. I want to dive into how you are directly helping with your company now, because I know you mentioned that you're a consultant, and I think Zach and I, like that's a term we call ourselves, right? Like it's we're a consultant in different areas, right? It's all because you could call us a health coach, you could call us a personal trainer, you could call us an influencer. Like we're none of those things, right? We're there to help you become the best version of you, and however that needs to go down is how it goes down. Every man is in a different spot in their life, and the reality is we were just talking about this in our morning meeting this morning. Is like we've got guys that have come in that are in already decent shape, but just want to be elite, right? They want to be elite in every area. We got guys that are 100+ pounds overweight that come to us, that the primary reason they're there is for weight loss, but the reality is they're looking for more. They want to get their health in order. They also want to be fulfilled as a man, fulfilled as a father. And so let's dive into that a little bit, because I know our pillars are very aligned. You mentioned faith. We kind of loop that into our fitness pillar, because there's mental and mental fitness, there's emotional fitness, there's physical fitness, there's spiritual fitness, and it's all kind of aligned in that one pillar. And so I want to dive into what you guys are doing in terms of your company, but like what's the common trend that you see right now of men that are struggling? Like what's the common piece that you feel like is missing from most of these guys' lives?
Well, we all know that people that have some success in their life ultimately want to have success in other pieces of their life.
Sure.
And what I see in my company, because we have some very successful people, high net worth people, and the reality is they're always looking for the quick fix. I'm going to go on the keto diet, or I'm going to go on this diet. I'm going to go on this. And from my standpoint, one of the things that I focus on, based on both, my Catholic faith and also what I studied in the martial arts. I studied Eastern philosophy, and all four things that you mentioned: spirituality, physical fitness, mental fitness, and the interchange between those, they exist in so many philosophies on our planet.
Sure.
And it's another thing that if we grasp those and pull them together, we can say, hey, look, you know what? This is going to be a journey, but it's not a diet. It's not going to the gym. It's a lifestyle change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I teach people. I say, look, you have to adopt a lifestyle change. If you want to quit being 100 pounds, you can't eat everything in sight. But if you don't negotiate with yourself to say, I need to eat that because I like that, then you're never going to succeed. Because if you extract something you really love from your diet, you're going to fail. You may have short-term success. You may even lose 100 pounds.
Yep.
But if you don't negotiate with your inner self, what I need versus what I have to have or want, then you can come to these conclusions that, hey, I can do a little bit of that. I need to do better over here. And then you say, I need to give myself time to decompress. I have to have that spiritual peace where if I come from work, am I going to be the best dad and husband I can be? No, because it was a crappy day at work. Sitting out in the car or before I turn the corner, take 5 minutes, breathe, put yourself in the best place that you can be, wherever that is, and then go home. And then take time with your son, and then be a better father, and then be a better son to your parents, and then, be the husband that you should be, the provider you should be. But that provider means giving that security, being that person that people can come to when the shit hits the fan. And so taking that spirituality, taking that lifestyle change, that I want to be here longer. I shared with you guys before we came on that my dad died at 57 from cancer. And he was in pretty decent shape. He was a runner and everything, but you never know what happens. So it changed my goals to be that person that could actually prepare for their family's future. And so I made changes that I adopted that went in line with the discipline that we all have to have. And that discipline to be a father, to take care of ourselves. The result is better everything.
Yes.
Better everything.
We often say
it's simple. Discipline is simple. It's not easy.
No.
So you got to make that change.
Well, we often say that when you make yourself the top priority in your own life, that everybody else gets the best version of you. And that's where a lot of fathers go wrong, right? They have this provider mentality, and they don't realize how quickly it can spiral out of control when you lose sight of the top priority in your life. Look, you can love your wife and your kids and everything more than you'll ever love yourself, right? Like that's your blood. That's your future, right? You're passing on your bloodline. But your life is your life, right? It's the only life you'll ever have. And it's the least selfish thing you could possibly do is make yourself the top priority, right? Like everybody, we got a lot of guys that have this skewed mentality, like family comes first. We were doing a call review with one of our sales guys yesterday. This guy was on the phone. This guy was on a Zoom call. And so this guy's like 100 pounds overweight, 80 pounds overweight. He starts talking about, like his health risks. And our guy was like, dude, are you like not concerned about heart attack and all this? And he's like, that's a chance I'm willing to take. I can't do this. My family comes first, and I have to provide for them. And I'm like, dude, like that is the most toxic thought process I've ever heard. And this guy's like, that's just a chance I'm willing to take. We're offering you a solution, and whether you take our solution or not, it's beyond me. But for you to actually verbalize that shit is like it poisoned me inside, man. Like,
selfish,
what is that?
Dude.
It's the most selfish mentality you can have.
It's true selfishness. A lot of people think that when they start to focus on themselves and prioritize themselves so that they can be the best they can be, so they can provide the best that they have to offer for everybody that they care about, they think that's what selfish. That's what selfishness is. It's not. No, neglecting yourself is selfish.
Well, you're
Yes.
a young man, and thank you.
He's talking to you, Zach, not me, bro.
Yeah.
No, Zach.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're a young man, and you know what? It makes me happy that you're involved in this, because that's where you solve the problems. It's not with the 60-year-old. It's you being that beacon, that shining thing that actually learned from others, hopefully people like us, of what you need to be. And people used to say all the time, how do you work out twice a day? How do you do this? And the bottom line was, I learned a long time ago, if I wasn't healthy, I couldn't take care of anything. And it was a rough lesson to learn, but I learned it and I adopted it as discipline. Going back to what we were talking about, you have to make that commitment. And the commitment isn't to something shallow, a diet or an exercise routine. It's a commitment to well-being. And that well-being is so much more than, you know, we were teasing about guns, and it's so much more than guns. It's so much more than, you know, having hair. It's so much more. And I say that because, you know, but
you're talking about your arm guns. I'm like, wait, we didn't talk about guns, but I'm willing to.
This is problematic.
I'm in Texas too, so we like our guns, right?
So, but really, Zach, the thing that you can see on your face is the relaxation of who you are. And you know what your kids will see? That.
He's got a little bit of confidence. I'll give him that. Like,
yes, but you know what? You know what they'll see is what you deliver is that I'm the steadfast, I'm the rock, and the rock doesn't just appear.
Right.
And that's the real lesson that your kids need to know, right? Being the best you doesn't just happen.
No. It's a daily process. That's where we, you know, and that's the big myth in the weight loss industry, right? It's like, I want to fix the problem and I want to get rid of it right now, but like, I want to go back to the old me, right? It's this mentality of like the 6 weeks to six pack abs bullshit that you always see on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. You scrolling, you're going to see some crazy weight loss ad promising this quick result. They don't fix this, right? And that's where we focus on most, is the mindset, right? We give you a structured system. It's very simple, very effective. Our guys crush, but the reason they crush is because we fix this, right? It's the mentality, it's the mindset. And when you get into the mindset, all the surface level bullshit goes away. The fad diets and this and that. Like, you know how to eat healthy, dude. It's like you've been alive for 25, 35, 45, 55 years. Don't tell me you don't know what healthy food looks like. Doesn't need to be all organic. Most guys would benefit from going from fast food and sugar to buying organic filled shit and would still be a lot better off, right?
Yep.
And so it's this mentality of like, I just want to get rid of it for now. And then like, I want to go back to the old me. And that's just, it couldn't be further from the truth. And I think that's where, you know, that's where a lot of people get caught up in the weeds. They're like, man, like, they don't focus on fixing themselves. They don't focus on becoming the ultimate leader in their own life with brutal honesty, integrity, and mental fortitude. Like, those are that's where the magic happens, right? The discipline piece that you mentioned. We like to say doing the hard shit when you don't want to do the hard shit. That's it. There's discipline right there. Can you win that game 90% of the time? Because if you can, you're going to be in a hell of a lot better spot 6 months from now, 12 months, your whole life. If you keep winning that inner conversation that you have in your own mind. It feeds
the discipline. It's like I teach people, you know, I had a whole bunch of employees that didn't make more than 40,000 a year. And my goal was to make sure they were millionaires when they retired. And they said, how can we do this when we're 30,000? I said, look, here's a simple example. Most Americans, including you, spend $55 a week on fast food and coffee. I said, instead, if you put that in your 401k, you would have $1 million at 65. You make you 30,000 a year. And the average company has 31% participation in their 401k. My company had 67%. And you're
educating them though. I mean, that's the thing.
Yep. But you know what? Our government teaches people that Social Security is retirement. That's the worst retirement that you could ever have.
Good luck.
And you know what it is? It's a way to say, I don't have to worry about it. And I told you guys what happened to my dad. And he passed away. And you know, thank God he didn't have a lot of debt or anything, but my mom wasn't set. And that's a failure. And it's not just a failure for my dad. It was a failure for me. It was a failure for this country. It's a failure for accepting that somebody else should take care of you when you should wake up every day saying, how am I going to be the best me? How am I going to take care of my family? How am I going to put myself in a position to do that? And part of that discipline is growing, right? Growing mentally, growing physically, growing emotionally, understanding that, man, I've made a ton of mistakes in my life. I'm going to own them. I'm going to try and do better every day. And that's the lifestyle that I've changed, right? I'm going to do better every day.
Love it.
And it may be a little better one day and a lot better one day, but every day that trend goes like this. Even though that 10% goes like this, we'll have these days. But overall, when we look back at our life, we can say that. And I can say, if something happens to me today, my son and my wife are taken care of.
I love it.
And so now, guess what's happened to me? I don't know if you guys can tell this or not, but I have a little bit of passion, a little bit of fire.
You got some energy.
And I love what I do because I get to help people do what I learned.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully help them miss those mistakes that I made.
You know, I have a little story to share with you guys, and I haven't told Zach this yet. This is brand new into my life, and so I want to talk about it with you because I think you're the perfect person to give some insight on this. So, my wife has a group of like mom friends, right? So they all met at daycare, okay? And one of the couples, they're like, I think the couple, like the dude is like a corporate attorney or something for like a major company, big company. And then she's a director of pharmacy, right? So they do well. They have 3 kids. They have twins and an older daughter. And it's come to my attention because I've checked out from these people. This is not my crowd. I've been dragged into the hanging out with them a bit, but it's they're just not my type of people, right? Like I can get along with some like a few of them. One of the dudes is cool. The other kind of guys is like they're the watch sports and get drunk all the time, like kind of guys, right? And I used to be that guy. Then I went through my massive stage of growth, started the business back in 18 and went through my own transformation mentally, right? In terms of personal development and growth. And so I've kind of checked out on that scene and I've gotten rid of a lot of dead weight in my life, which is a requirement when you're trying to grow in all areas of life, right? Zach has done the same. So anyway, this couple, I find out that they had a little disagreement. They all went to like a concert, and one of the wives, this was after the concert, they went out to eat. It was very late. There was a lot of alcohol involved. And one of the wives started poking at one of the husbands. And the husband happens to be an Ohio State football fan. And this man is very large. Like he's definitely not your model of health by any means. Big guy, probably 100 pounds overweight, at least. And so clearly not leading by example in the health department. But they're financially, they're in a good spot. They love to buy things, right? So I've been kind of watching from afar. Like they moved to Texas. They bought a nice house. Wasn't enough for them. So they bought another, they moved and bought another nice house, right? Had it built brand new. And then they bought a lake property out on, I know that you're in Texas, so you've heard of Possum Kingdom. Beautiful lake, right? Yep. So they go and buy a lake property out at Possum Kingdom right on the lake. And then they buy a brand new Corvette. And so the materialistic things continue to pile up, right? Then they go out and they get a pair of these very expensive, God, what is it, like the mountain dog? What is that damn, like great, is it Pyrenees maybe? Big giant mountain dogs, right? And they get them dual puppy. Come home, these puppies rip up the house. They're like, we'll just get it fixed. No big deal. No training, no nothing, right? They got this whole zoo going on at home. And I've been picking up on the fact that there's been some issues in that marriage for quite some time. And long story short, they get in a little tiff and the mom sends a text to the mom's groups, basically as a farewell, like, we're out. There's no more friends here. No more nothing. So I get to talk to my wife about it. And I'm like, I've been watching from afar for a while because I've really been checked out on this group for quite some time. And that couple was never our favorite anyway. But I'm originally from Michigan and they're Ohio State, right? There's already some friction there, right?
Mhm.
So point of my story is this. This man does very well for himself and is clearly unfulfilled as a person, right? Clearly is chasing materialistic things to fill his cup because his cup can never be filled. He's not happy with what he sees in the mirror. His energy level is in the shitter, and he drinks all the freaking time. This guy, big dude, can high tolerance, lots of whiskey. That's his thing. This guy's got an extensive whiskey collection like you wouldn't believe, right? Like hundreds of different kinds. So my question to you, or my the reason I present the story to you, is that the financial piece is great if you have the other stuff together. But if you don't have the other stuff together, the family, the relationships, leading by example, your health, your well-being, your fulfillment as a man, when you can look in the mirror and say, you know what? I love that dude no matter what. And I'm very happy with what I see in the mirror. And I'm not advocating for every dude to have a six-pack abs. That's not where I'm coming from. But it is impossible for you to look in the mirror and say, I'm 100% happy with what I see in the mirror, right? When you're 300 and something pounds. So my question to you would be, is this something that you see a lot, or is this a common trend amongst men where there's clearly something missing there? Because he continues to chase the materialistic stuff, but his cup is never full. He's never happy. Now they're talking about moving out of the current house and building another one because they're just not happy. It's just nonstop rotating thing of financial purchases.
Here's this. I would say there are two extremes that our country is suffering from. Number one is the one that you said. Okay. You got people that I'm going to tell you, I'm not the norm. Okay. I've been debt free for 20 years. I go to the Under Armour factory store and buy my shirt, and I try not to pay retail for anything. And it's the economist in me, but it's also the person that when I was growing up, my mom said, you get one pair of jeans, you get a winter coat, and you get one pair of shoes. That's what you get this year. But my mom also said, if you want more than that, because I wanted Britannicas and all this stuff, she said, you can work and do whatever you want to get that. If it's legal and legitimate, we'll support you. And that's what we all did, right? If we wanted something else, we'd go shovel snow, we'd go work, we'd do whatever. So that mentality stuck with me. And I told you earlier that I think that some of the boomers failed with their kids because they gave them so much that they don't understand that that's not the reality. Mm-hmm. Okay. My son didn't have everything, and he could have. And when he came home in 8th grade and wanted to go to space camp, because he got picked, 4 boys out of El Paso, he said, Dad, it's $800. I said, so what are you going to do to get that $800 by the time this rolls around? And guess what? He did a company. He went around, did the yard work. He washed cars. He did whatever. He did flyers and he did all that stuff. Guess what he did? He learned about neighbors. He learned that they're part of our community. So instead of driving our kids to freaking school, let them walk so they know the neighborhood. So
imagine
they engage. That. You know, we talk about our schools are safer than ever before, but we see these reports and they're 24/7. Right? My dad went to PS 52. People had guns and stabbings all the time, and that was in the 50s. Okay, in New York. I'm sorry. There's danger.
The media wants you to believe one thing.
Right? There is danger, but deal with it. Understand, see it, be aware. Well, this guy is not aware. You know what he's aware of? That if I have enough money, I can buy something that makes her happy for 6 months. That's it. Okay, that's it. He's risking his life. He's risking everything because they haven't come to grips with where they're at together. And to avoid that, they just buy the new thing because they think that that will help, and it never does. You know, I was very blessed. My wife supported me in my goal setting and everything, and she never interfered with that. Right. And so now she's getting ready to retire. She doesn't have any debt. We're in good shape. Right. But good shape for me is not $100 million in the bank. Good shape is enough for me not to have to worry about working, to have time to do the things I want. Okay. Now, I'm really good at finances. And so I help people with their finances. But that doesn't mean I spend every dollar I make. That means that I give to my school because I had a scholarship. That means I take care of my church because that's what it means, right? That's to me. All right. Then we have the other side of the coin, where we raise generations of people in poverty to be on subsistence, and we allow the excuse of that to allow the leaving of the father. And until we engage fathers to take responsibility, which is only the first step, we have to engage the mothers that they need fathers. Because right now in our society, women think that they don't need anything.
Yeah, it's been set up very strategically.
And it's unfortunate because they're like men. Men need women.
But and independent women and masculine or toxic masculinity,
right?
Have all of a sudden turned these people into these women into independent women who don't think that marriage is a thing. This generation that we have right now doesn't believe in marriage, and this hookup culture is poisoning our society. We have family core values stripped out of society.
That's what we talked about at the beginning.
What are we doing here? Right. And all by design. When we won't.
And now, how do we just address children? We tell them, oh, you can pick what you want to be when you're 8.
And then, hey, if you want to go cut your wiener off right now, you can do that too.
It's like, and the reality is we got to go to those basics, right? When you get married, what are you getting married for? Why? Because we all know that the lust fades, right? So you have to have common goals. You have to have common aspirations. You have to be concurrent on whether you want to have a family or not. I respect parents that don't have kids as much, if not more, than parents that have kids that don't invest in them. Because a lot of the parents that don't have kids are responsible enough to say, I can't do that. And I respect that. Because there's a lot of people that have kids that shouldn't have kids.
100%.
They're not vested in the children. Like I told you, I gave up the best job I ever had to be at home, to be a family man, because my parents showed me love. I wanted to make sure that there's no book on being a good dad, but at least I knew that my parents loved me. And I wanted to make sure my son knew that. Right. And even if my foot was up his ass occasionally, he knew that. And he's been intimidated by me and stuff like that. But the reality is we're growing.
You have high expectations as a dad.
We're growing past that. And so, it's an evolution. And so, like I said, I think that, yes, I see it commonly. And that's one of the reasons why this company is so successful, because people realize they're smart people, but they realize they need something more. And so they're committing to be this community. And it's a beautiful thing because they do help each other. Yep. They give each other advice. They give each other medical. They're involved with each other more than they are.
That's the magic of a community, though.
And that's what it is.
You give as much as you take, right? You give as much as you take.
Exactly. And having just that title of each event focuses on the pillars. And when you bring focus to it, then we can introduce discipline. Then we can introduce lifestyle change. Then we can introduce valuation. And when I say valuation, that goes back to what you were talking about. Is the lake house that freaking important? No. You know what's really important?
It gives him an escape to get away from his family, though.
Exactly.
There you go.
Or just to, say I have this. I don't give a shit about that.
Materialistic possessions mean nothing to me.
Well, exactly. Somebody told me the other day, you're going to do these Zooms and you're going to have your background. I'm like, look, if people are interested in my sports memorabilia more than what I say, that's on them, not me.
I don't give a shit about your sports memorabilia unless you got some lion shit back there that you can want to float my way.
No. Oh,
there you go.
I grew up in Cheyenne, and I went to the University of Wyoming, and I know a lot of people say, "Oh, sports is this." I said it's like everything else in life. You got to have balance.
He's holding up a Denver Broncos mug for you guys that are listening, man. So clearly we're not aligned on the sports page, but you know what?
Well,
I don't give a shit, right? That's
exactly.
meaningless to me.
But you know what? the important stuff we do give a shit on. And the
100%.
reason why we're here on this call, and I'm looking at Zach, and it gives me, you know, you haven't said a lot.
His youthful
but
face.
you've impressed me a lot, because I see in your eyes where your head is. And, you know, so thank you and congratulations, because, you know, if I were as enlightened then as I am now, things would have even been better. And really, that's my whole thrust now, because like I told you guys, I'm far from perfect, man. I made a lot of mistakes.
None of us are, but you know what? That's what creates us, the uniqueness of each one of us, right? Like,
right.
Mhm.
That diversity, that's the diversity that we
right?
should focus on.
Give a shit if you're purple, green, or blue.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Diversity is what adversity creates the
Creates
diversity. There you
diversity.
go. I just coined a new term. I don't know if anybody.
I like that. Do it, baby.
Your adversity creates the diversity, and that's the truth. What battles have you fought through and overcome in your life? Right? You mentioned your dad. I lost my mom at 49. I was 25 years old. You didn't think that punched me in the gut worse than anything I've ever experienced in my life? I've got a close friend right now who's about to lose his mom. She's, I think, in her late 50s or early 60s, I think, early 60s, who's about to pass away from stage 4 cancer. And this lady took me into her house when we had this massive freeze a couple of years ago, let my whole family come stay over there for 3 nights and like catered to us like we were the second coming, right? And so I have the utmost respect for her, and she's about to pass away. And so what adversity have you gone through as a human being? Because any guy listening to this show right now has dealt with some really dark shit. And I think a big missing piece in bringing up the cell phone again, when we're glued to that damn thing all day, we lose the communication and the human touch that we're meant to have as a society, as men. Men need other men to lead on. And when we don't have men to lean on, we start to channel all that anxiety and stress and depression and those dark feelings inside instead of letting them outside, which is a big reason why we do our retreats. We do some clearing exercises at the retreats so that these guys can just release the negative shit that's been holding them back, the beliefs that they've had their whole lives because of trauma that's happened, gives them the ability and the platform to be able to get rid of it around other men that are just as screwed up as they are, right? And that's where the magic happens. And when you lack that, because you're always glued to this and you don't have any outlets in life, man, like you're destined for failure. Like your uphill battle becomes, you know, like the hike up to Mount Everest versus just a small hill, all because you don't have a sense of brotherhood or a sense of community around you. It's literally the most impactful thing about what we do is the brotherhood inside of the fatherhood. And that's why our guys are so successful. When we have guys come on and hire us to help them, if they check out from the community or they're not very involved with the community, generally speaking, what do you think happens to that guy? He doesn't do nearly as well as he could or should have because the brotherhood's not there. The sense of community is not there. When that's missing, you're missing a core piece of why humans thrive the way they do. Human emotion is basically founded on communication with other humans, right? Like you didn't have any. That's why solitary confinement is so miserable. You ain't got shit. When you do, you can get a lot further in life with community.
Well, you know, I'm going to say a couple of things right off the bat because there are things that changed my direction. But I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I've seen some really bad things happen. I've seen people die. People have died in my arms. I've had that happen. And, you know, I think, like you said, you got things that you have to fall back on to deal with those. And you got your faith, you have your family. It's funny how those 4 F's keep coming up, right? But you also have your friends, right? And that's that brotherhood. And I was very lucky. I had good friends. But you know what I realized later in life is that all of us have tragedies. Every one of us. You know, no one makes it out alive. And so to me, to make my tragedy more important than your tragedy is the first mistake. The second thing that you need to do is accept that every tragedy is not nearly as tragic as you made it think in your own head.
100%.
And I learned that now when I was younger, the reason why I got into martial arts is I stuttered, and I still do. Okay.
Well, you've done a pretty damn good job with not stuttering.
Well, I'll tell you how that
control.
I'll tell you how that came about, and you'll understand why this is an important topic that I'm glad you brought up. And I know we are on time constraints and stuff, but here's the reality. I stuttered. I got very angry because I thought people made fun of me and all those things. And the reality is it probably was not near as bad as I thought. And that's why this whole bullying thing and all of that is, you know what? Kids say stupid things because they're kids, and we need to grow past that. We need to understand that. We need to accept that, and we need to deal with it. Right. Well, my way of dealing with it was my dad saying, I punched a hole in my mom's door at home, and man, that did not go over well. Okay. So my dad said, okay, what's the problem? And I said, I don't talk a lot. And he says, yeah, it's not that big a deal. Right. He said, but we got to handle it. Got me into martial arts. The reason is because he understood that if I could discipline and control my anger in my mind, that I would later be able to handle this little problem of stuttering that I had. So that was one trauma I dealt with. And then once I got past the anger, I was still stuttering. So I'm like, what am I going to do now? He says, well, what are you going to do? I joined the speech team in high school. It was the most traumatic thing. I still, like before our call, I had butterflies in my stomach. And what I forced myself to do is I did poetry first, right? Mr. Karate Guy, because you could memorize the poetry. And the more you memorized it, the easier it was to get through it without stuttering. So I did that. Then the next thing I did was debate. So I started debating. I ended up getting a full ride debate scholarship.
Nice.
And what I found was it was connecting my mouth to my head. When I stuttered, it disconnected. So I couldn't continue a thought. So I figured out how to continue the thought. So even if I stuttered, it wasn't a big thing to everybody else as much as it was to me. Then the next thing that happened to me is I had some paralysis based on some issues that I had medically. A lot of them happened at the same time. So I had some short-term paralysis, and I had to take drugs 4 times a day in school. And I was 13 years old, and you'd get called to the principal office. You want to talk about some embarrassing stuff. You couldn't go to PE. You couldn't do any of those things. So I decided to rely on some of the initial things that my dad taught me. If you want something bad enough, start working towards it. So even though I wasn't supposed to do any physical activity for 2 to 3 years, I started running. I started doing my karate. I ended up at the end of when I got into junior high, going to the doctor, getting taken off the medication, realizing that the heart murmur and the kidney problems that I had were gone. And so I learned from then that you have an enormous tool to control these catastrophes that happen in your life. And the first one is realizing you're not the only person going through it. And
100%.
if you do that, then you can accept help from your brothers, your friends, and your family. And the third thing is understanding that there's going to be trauma. There's going to be things you have to go through. But if you make sure that you're living your life by sharing your feelings and everything. When my dad passed away, I drove from El Paso to Cheyenne. My mom called me and said, he's not going to last. He waited for me. I got there at 9 o'clock. At 9:20, he died in my arms. And it was terrible to lose your father. But I also gave him the chance to tell me what he needed me to take care of, which was my mom. I gave him the assurance that that would happen, which gave him peace. And I knew that throughout our lives, all 57 years that my dad knew I loved him, I can live with that. So no matter what happens in life, if I lost my wife or my son or myself, I can go to that next place knowing that they know that I loved them. So that communication piece gives you the strength to move forward in tragedy, because you don't have, like you said, that regret when your son goes away and you never spend any time with them. So don't live with the chance of regret. Be proactive, not reactive. Take things by the balls and move forward. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Something bad's going to happen.
You have to embrace adversity. You got to be ready for it.
You got to go with it. And you may not handle it the right way, but if you're trying to handle it, you're going to be that much better than the people that shudder and fall away. And as a father, you have to try to handle it, and you have to communicate and take those brothers with you. How can you help me? What do I need? How can I share?
It's yeah, we've covered a lot of great stuff today, man. And what you just said, like, I think so many people, so many fathers feel like, especially when they get behind with their health and they get behind with the relationships and they feel like it's a constant battle to keep up. It's a scramble. They got no balance. They're living life reactively, like they're not living proactively, right? And I think a big missing piece here, and this big misconception, is that so many fathers out there feel like, discipline is a trait, right? And it's not. It's a tool that you sharpen as you continue to move forward in life. And when you strengthen your mental fortitude, when you learn how to embrace adversity, because the reality is this, is like, what you just described happens to everybody. Everybody's going to lose their parents at some point. Some people lose their kids before they die, which is tragic as hell, but it happens. Some people get their legs blown off in war, right? Like, adversity is going to happen. But the bottom line is, when you are working on your mental fortitude and your mental toughness on a day-to-day basis, right? You're fighting through the lack of motivation to go work out. You're fighting through the urge to go get fast food on a Tuesday night when you know damn good and well that salmon, sweet potato, and asparagus is going to make you a hell of a lot better the next day. You're choosing the easier path. And I think at the end of the day, man, it's all about choosing the hard, choosing the uncomfortable situation more times than not, which means going to the gym when you try to talk yourself out of it. It means getting your ass up when you don't want to get up, when your alarm goes off, not hitting snooze 4 times and getting up and doing something that's going to serve you instead of hinder you, right? It's doing the little things on a day-to-day basis so that they have a compounding effect. And then when you do get hit in the face, well, as life is going to punch you in the face with a death or a job loss or, whatever life throws your way, your house burns down. Those things become a lot easier to deal with, or a lot simpler to deal with, because you've been sharpening that axe all along the way. And that's where most men just get lost in the weeds and realize, or can't realize, that it's not about the long term. It's about, what are you doing every day to get 1% better, day in and day out.
Well, it's like Zach said, being the best you can be. That's what you need to do. And I'll finish this with the financial thing, because you brought something up really quick. The one thing I teach people in our group that I think is the biggest misconception is that money is not the goal. Money is the tool. The goal that I had, and that I hope for my people to have and my son to have, is choice.
Love that.
Choice to live the life that you want to live, whether it be serving others or whatever that choice is. Money's only a tool. And if you keep it in that compartment as a tool, it never gets the best of you.
Mm-hmm.
That way you're focused on the choice of being a better father, of being a better person, of being a better husband, being a leader, because leaders by definition serve. And if you can't serve others because you're not in shape, then that's
what are you doing with your life?
And I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about the alignment
everything
brought up earlier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The pillars.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yep.
We're all called to serve at a higher level, and we're all here for a reason. And we're all here at this time for a reason too, because adversity is coming our way. We all know this. We all know that adversity is going to get is coming everybody's way, no matter who you are and what you stand for. I don't care how much money you got. If you're not one of them, adversity is coming your way, and it's going to knock us all for a loop if you're not prepared. And I think the reality is, man, is it comes to being aligned with who you are and what you stand for on a day-to-day basis. And if you're not where you're at right now, challenging yourself to become the best and most elite version of yourself in all areas of life. So I had a lot of fun with this interview, man. You brought a lot of value to the audience. Yeah, we went longer than we normally do, but we don't give a shit, dude. If there's value, there's value, and that's what we're all about. So to put a stamp on this interview, where can our audience find more about you? Where can they learn more about Dean, and where can they get more of you?
Well, as I told you, they're making me become more present, but there's a couple of things that you can look at. And one of them is our company website, which is going to change, but the address won't. It's www.yblnow.com.
Love
That's
it.
the website to the company. And it has some insight into the 4 pillars and the trips and stuff like that. Myself, my email is dean at ybl.now.com. I'm on Facebook. Other than that, I do some, if you Google me, you'll see some podcasts that I've done. And I try and I'll tell you this, I try and add value to those podcasts based on what we're doing. So I did one with a martial artist in Europe, and we talked about man stuff, and it's good. I did one on being your best CEO with some women entrepreneurs. So that's good. So I would encourage you to, it's not really about me. It's about the content, because I think the content's important. It's like you guys. I don't think it's about Jason and Zach as much as it's about what you guys are giving and the direction that, and the fact that you take interest in something that our society is not taking interest in.
Yeah,
And
I agree
that's
with
the
you.
reason why our society is decaying. We
100%.
lose sight of the core values that you talk about, and family is one of those. And a family doesn't have to be those things, but I've seen 2 women in a family unit that do well. But you know what they do well at? Learning the stuff that we had as a traditional family and offering that to their child. And those things are brilliant if we share them, and we don't. We're afraid to talk about them. Well, the blessing of being older is you get less and less afraid. And when I used to get in the ring, there's 2 things I learned. Always respect your opponent, because a lucky punch is as good as a good punch. And number 2, always make sure you're aware of your surroundings.
Love it.
They will take advantage of you.
Love it. No, I agree with you on the age thing, man. I posted something about that the other day. It's like one of the most liberating things in the world was getting to a point in my life where I don't give a shit what anybody thinks about me, right? Like that's it. Like I wake up every day and I don't really care what you think about Jason Priest. Like that's it. My dirt's out there. And so, yeah, dude, I echo your sentiments.
That's why when you guys asked me that, I started laughing, because there's nothing. When Zach says, "Is there anything else?" I'm like, no, bring it.
Yeah. Love it, dude. Well, hey, man, this is awesome. We appreciate your time. We appreciate all the value that you added to our audience today, and we'll definitely have to do it again in the future.
Thank you, guys. And like I said, more than anything, I appreciate what you're doing. And
appreciate it,
that
man.
you gave me an
Likewise.
opportunity to be part of that is amazing.
Likewise, man. We appreciate what you're doing as well, and that's why we're very aligned. So, yeah, have an awesome weekend with your family, man, and we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.